I want to tell you something that took me 23 years of practicing internal medicine to finally say out loud in a public place. The conversation your doctor is not having with you about your blood sugar is not an accident. It is not because they are bad doctors. It is because the entire framework of how we treat blood sugar in this country was built around what can be prescribed. And what I am about to walk you through cannot be prescribed. It cannot be bottled, patented, or billed. But the research behind it is sitting in some of the most respected medical journals in the world, and the patients in my clinic who have acted on it are having conversations with their specialists right now that nobody told them were possible. I am Dr. William Carter. I spent over 2 decades watching people manage a diagnosis instead of changing one. And I made a decision a few years ago that the most useful thing I could do with everything I have learned is explain it in plain language to the people who need it most. That is why I am here, so let us get into it. Before I give you the 5 habits, I need you to understand one thing, one biological fact, because without it, the habits are just a list. With it, they become a system. And the difference between a list and a system is the difference between trying something for a week and actually changing your numbers. Here is the fact. Insulin resistance is not a disease of too much sugar. It is a disease of a broken conversation. Insulin is a messenger. Its job is to knock on the door of your cells and say, "Glucose is here, let it in." In a young, healthy body, that knock is loud and the door opens fast. But after decades of high glucose, constant knocking, the cells start ignoring the signal. The receptors change shape. The door stiffens. Insulin is still knocking. The glucose is still there. But the communication has broken down. And that breakdown is what drives the numbers your doctor is watching every time you walk into that office. Now here is what changes everything. That communication breakdown is not permanent. It is not irreversible. And the 5 things I'm going to show you today each restore it from a completely different biological direction. Which is why when you combine them, the effect does not add up. It multiplies. I have seen it happen. My patient James, 68 years old, retired firefighter from Columbus, Ohio, fasting glucose of 211 at his last physical. His doctor told him very clearly that they were moving to the next level of medication management. He came to see me a week later, not looking for a miracle, just looking to understand what was actually happening in his body. 6 months later, same lab, same phlebotomist drawing his blood, fasting glucose of 118. Not from a new prescription, from 5 things he started doing before breakfast, after dinner, and before bed. I am going to walk you through every single one of them right now. Habit 5. And I want to start here because this one is the most dismissed, and it is the most misunderstood. Habit 5 is morning water. Specifically, 16 to 20 ounces of plain water the moment your feet touch the floor. Before your phone, before your coffee, before your blood sugar meter. I know that sounds too simple to matter. That is exactly why most people skip it. And skipping it is costing them points on their fasting glucose every single morning. Here is the mechanism, and this is the part your doctor's appointment does not leave time for. As you age past 65, your brain's thirst detection system becomes unreliable. This is well documented. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed that adults over 60 are frequently running 8 to 12% below optimal cellular hydration without any sensation of thirst. None. They wake up clinically dehydrated and do not feel it. Now here is why that matters for blood sugar specifically. When your cells are dehydrated, glucose concentrates in your bloodstream. Your fasting reading climbs not because your body produced more glucose, but because the fluid ratio shifted while you slept. The glucose is the same. There is just less water around it. It is the difference between a cup of ocean salt and a teaspoon of ocean salt. The salt did not increase, the water decreased. But the second mechanism is the one that genuinely surprised me when I first came across the research. There is a hormone called vasopressin, also called antidiuretic hormone. Its job is to signal your kidneys to hold onto fluid when you are dehydrated. But vasopressin does something else as well. It signals your liver to release stored glucose into your bloodstream. Your liver, in response to overnight dehydration, is dumping glucose into your blood before you have eaten a single thing. This is one of the reasons people check their fasting glucose in the morning, and the number is higher than they expect. They went to bed at a reasonable level. They woke up higher. They blamed their dinner. The real driver was vasopressin, triggered by dehydration, triggered by 8 hours without water. The fix takes 30 seconds. Keep a full glass of water on your nightstand. Drink it before anything else. Room temperature, cold, filtered through a basic pitcher, does not matter. What matters is that the water arrives before coffee, before food, before your system gets any other signal. Because once you drink coffee, vasopressin suppression is complicated by the diuretic effect. Do the water first. The coffee can wait 5 minutes. Now, habit 4 is where the real mechanism work begins. And this is what I want you to write down if you write down nothing else from today. Habit 4 is protein-first breakfast. And I'm going to explain why the order of your breakfast may be doing more damage to your blood sugar than the food itself. When food arrives in your stomach and small intestine, your gut releases a collection of hormones that regulate how aggressively glucose enters your blood. One of those hormones is called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. You may have heard that name recently because the newest and most expensive class of diabetes medications is designed to mimic it synthetically. The drugs work by doing what GLP-1 naturally does. GLP-1 slows the rate at which your stomach empties, which slows glucose release. It stimulates your pancreas to produce insulin in proportion to the glucose arriving, and it suppresses glucagon, the hormone that tells your liver to release stored glucose on top of everything else. One hormone doing 3 things simultaneously, all of them protective. Here is the critical detail. GLP-1 is triggered most powerfully by protein and fat arriving first in your digestive tract. When protein is the first thing your stomach processes, GLP-1 fires. When carbohydrate is the first thing your stomach processes, the GLP-1 response is weaker and slower. Research published in Diabetes Care found that a protein preload before carbohydrates reduced the glucose spike from the meal by 36 to 44%. Same meal, same carbohydrates, same total calories. Different order, a different biological outcome. Let me tell you what James was eating for breakfast before he came to see me. Oatmeal with honey and a glass of orange juice. He had been eating this for years because it was what everyone told him was heart healthy. And in certain contexts it can be. But for blood sugar, he was starting every single morning by detonating a glucose spike into insulin receptors that had just spent 8 hours stiffening from overnight dehydration. He was working against himself every day before 7 in the morning and had no idea. The change was not dramatic. 2 eggs scrambled, half an avocado, a small handful of walnuts. 10 minutes later, a modest portion of oatmeal if he wanted it. The carbohydrates did not disappear. They simply stopped arriving first. His 2-week fasting glucose average moved from 211 to 147 in the first month. One change, one meal, different order. If eggs are not your thing, Greek yogurt works identically. Cottage cheese works. Paneer works. The specific protein is secondary. The principle is what matters. Protein first, every single morning. Habit 3 is one I call the cold transformation, and it involves a piece of biology that most people, including most doctors, have genuinely never heard of. Habit 3 is cold-cooked resistant starch, and I want to take a moment on this because the mechanism is extraordinary. When you cook a starchy food, rice, potatoes, lentils, pasta, and then allow it to cool completely in the refrigerator overnight, something happens inside the structure of those starches. The molecules rearrange. They form tight crystalline structures called retrograde resistant starch. And in that new form, your digestive enzymes cannot break them down at the same speed. Think of freshly cooked starch like a loosely unraveled ball of yarn. Your enzymes can grab threads easily and fast. Glucose enters your blood in a rush. Now picture that same yarn wound tightly and left in the cold overnight. It compresses. It tightens. Your enzymes still work, but they work slowly. The glucose releases over 2 to 3 hours instead of 30 minutes. The spike that would have spiked does not. Research from the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that cooling cooked potatoes overnight reduced their glycemic response by up to 35%. The glycemic index of a freshly cooked potato sits around 85. The same potato, cooled overnight in your refrigerator, drops to below 50. Not a different food, not a different amount. The same potato, stored differently for one night, with a fundamentally different effect on your blood sugar. cold potato salad with olive oil, room temperature rice over greens, lentils eaten cold from the container. These are not deprivation meals. These are the same foods you were already eating, and one night in the refrigerator changes what they do inside your body. One critical note: reheating destroys the resistant starch structure. The crystalline formation collapses at high temperatures. If you reheat the potato, you have converted it back. It must be consumed cold or at room temperature to preserve the benefit. That one detail, one night cold, no reheating, is the entire habit. Before I get to habit 2, I need to tell you about 3 combinations that will quietly cancel everything you have just learned. Most people do these things while doing everything else correctly, and then wonder why the numbers refuse to move. The first one is pairing cold-resistant starch with fruit juice. Even 1 glass of orange juice alongside your cold potato salad introduces a concentrated sugar hit that has no fiber to slow it down. The resistant starch slows the potato glucose. The juice glucose has nothing slowing it. It spikes independently while you believe you are protected. Whole fruit is entirely different. The fiber in whole fruit is the protection. When you juice the fruit, you remove the protection. Eat the orange. Do not drink it. The second combination to avoid is using high-sodium processed deli meat as your protein-first breakfast source. Sodium in large quantities activates a hormonal cascade that increases insulin resistance in the hours that follow. You are trying to activate GLP-1 with your protein. High-sodium processed meat works against the insulin receptor sensitivity that GLP-1 was supposed to improve. Fresh eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, smoked salmon, fresh fish, not packaged deli slices as a shortcut. The third combination is adding artificially sweetened drinks to your morning water window. Research has documented that certain artificial sweeteners alter the gut microbiome in ways that impair glucose tolerance. Your first hour after waking is the cleanest metabolic window of the entire day. Protect it. Plain water, a squeeze of lemon if you want it. Nothing artificial in that first 60 minutes. These 3 things are not hard to avoid, but they are quiet. People make them without knowing, and they wonder why the habits are not moving the needle. Now you know why. Habit 2. This one will take you 10 minutes after dinner, and it may do more for your blood sugar than any single medication in the standard treatment algorithm for type 2 diabetes. Habit 2 is a short walk, 10 minutes after your evening meal. And the mechanism behind it is one of the most elegant pieces of biology I have ever had the privilege of explaining to a patient. When you finish dinner and sit down, your muscles are at rest. Resting muscles are metabolically quiet. The glucose from your dinner is competing for limited uptake in your bloodstream, and your insulin receptors, already stiff and resistant, are being asked to handle a full meal. The numbers climb. This is the predictable postprandial spike that your meter will show you if you test 90 minutes after eating. But the moment you start moving, something extraordinary happens. Your muscle cells activate a protein called GLUT4, a glucose transporter. And GLUT4 is independent of insulin. It does not need your pancreas. It does not care about your insulin resistance. Movement activates it directly, and it physically pulls glucose out of your bloodstream and deposits it into muscle tissue without requiring insulin to open any door at all. Research led by Dr. Loretta Di Pietro at George Washington University found that short walks taken after each meal reduced the overall daily blood sugar curve by a larger margin than a single 30-minute walk taken at a different time of day. The timing is the mechanism. The glucose is there right after dinner. The GLUT4 activation is what pulls it out before it has time to sit and cause damage. Distance does not matter. Pace does not matter. Slow is perfectly sufficient. Your living room, your driveway, a block around your neighborhood. 10 minutes after dinner every night. That is the entire habit. And for those of you taking metformin, I want to be direct about something. Metformin is a meaningful medication, and I am not suggesting you stop it. But metformin works primarily on your liver. It reduces overnight glucose production. What it does not do is address the postprandial spike from dinner in the way that 10 minutes of movement does. They work on completely different systems. You can run both simultaneously, and the effect is not redundant. It is additive. Habit 1. I want you to take a breath before I get to this one, because what I'm about to tell you is the most underappreciated driver of high fasting blood sugar in people over 60. And it is something almost nobody in a standard 15-minute appointment is asking about. Habit 1 is sleep, but not just any sleep, specifically the quality and timing of deep, uninterrupted sleep. And the connection to your morning fasting number is more direct than almost anything else you will hear about blood sugar management. Between roughly 2 and 4 in the morning, your body begins preparing to wake up. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, starts rising. As it rises, it signals your liver to release stored glucose to fuel the day ahead. This is called the dawn phenomenon. It is normal. It happens in everyone. But here is what changes it from a gentle background process into a fasting glucose problem. If your sleep is fragmented, if you are waking at 2 or 3 in the morning, lying awake, drifting back to sleep, that cortisol curve does not follow its normal schedule. It spikes earlier, climbs higher, and releases significantly more glucose than a consistent deep sleep cycle would produce. And that glucose is sitting in your bloodstream before you have had breakfast, before you have taken your medication, before you have done anything, waiting to be the number you read off your meter first thing in the morning. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that a single night of partial sleep deprivation, just 4 to 5 hours instead of 7 to 8, increased insulin resistance across multiple metabolic pathways by 25%. From one night. Not months of poor sleep. One night changed the biology measurably the following day. This is the part that I find most frustrating about how blood sugar is managed in this country. People are told to track their carbohydrates, take their medication, test their glucose. Nobody asks them what temperature their bedroom is at night. Nobody asks them whether they are waking up at 3 in the morning. Nobody connects the pattern that their Monday fasting number after a restless Sunday night is consistently 15 to 20 points higher than their Thursday number after 3 solid nights. That pattern has a name. It has a biological explanation, and it has a 2-part fix that costs less than a thermostat setting. The first part is room temperature. Your body needs to drop its core temperature to enter the deep, slow-wave sleep stage where insulin sensitivity is partially restored overnight. Research on sleep thermoregulation is consistent on this point. A bedroom above 70 degrees Fahrenheit meaningfully reduces time spent in deep sleep. Target 65 to 68 degrees. A programmable thermostat set to cool down by 9 in the evening. That is the first intervention. The second part is a consistent bedtime, not a range, a specific time, same every night. Your circadian rhythm governs the timing and magnitude of that cortisol curve. A stable clock means a predictable lower cortisol response. An irregular clock, different times on weeknights versus weekends, means an exaggerated response. Your fasting glucose on Monday morning is partly determined by what time you went to sleep on Saturday night. That connection is real, and it is documented. James's fasting glucose at 6 months, 118, down from 211 on the same metformin dose he started with. No insulin, no new prescriptions. His endocrinologist, the one who had been discussing next steps at the previous appointment, spent most of that 6-month visit asking James to write down what he had changed. Let me give you the full picture one more time, because these 5 habits are not 5 separate improvements. They are one continuous system, and the order in which they work across a single day is the point. Morning water arrives first, suppresses vasopressin, stabilizes cellular hydration, prevents the liver glucose dump before breakfast. Protein-first breakfast activates GLP-1 from a position of hydrated, primed cells, creating a triple layer of protection before the first carbohydrate arrives. Cold-resistant starch at lunch and dinner flattens the glucose curve across the middle and end of your day, slowing glucose entry at the source. The 10-minute after-dinner walk activates GLUT4 and physically removes remaining glucose from the bloodstream before the overnight window opens. And deep, cool, consistent sleep keeps cortisol on its proper schedule, so the liver does not flood your bloodstream at 2 in the morning before you have done anything wrong at all. 5 completely different biological mechanisms, one system. Run together, they create a metabolic environment that no single medication can replicate, because no single medication reaches all 5 simultaneously. Here is how to start. Not next week. Tonight. Tonight, fill a glass of water and put it on your nightstand. Tomorrow morning, drink it before anything else in your life gets your attention. Tomorrow, make your breakfast protein first. 1 egg, 1 portion of yogurt, anything with real protein before the toast or oatmeal. This week, cook 1 starchy food ahead and refrigerate it. Try it cold at 1 meal. After dinner this week, set a 10-minute timer and walk around your house, down your street. Slow is fine. This weekend, choose a bedtime and set your thermostat. Not a range, a time, a temperature. 5 habits. None of them require a gym membership. None require a special food or a supplement or a prescription. They require understanding the mechanisms your body is working with every day, which you now have. Your biology has not abandoned you. It is waiting for the right conditions. Give it those conditions and watch what it does. If what I shared today gave you something useful, I want you to leave one thing in the comments. Tell me your current fasting glucose number and 1 word for how long you have been managing this. Just those 2 things. I read every one, and what you share genuinely shapes what I cover next. Because the next video I am building addresses something specific that happens inside your body during the 4 hours after dinner that most people with blood sugar issues have never been told about. It changes how you think about every evening meal. That video is the next one on your screen. I will see you there.